Shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom. Giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator and the Maker of heaven and earth. My name is Yeshaya Yisrael of the tribe of Dan of the nation of Israel. This particular teaching, we intend for it not to be long, and we appreciate the people who have participated, who have shared, who have commented, and brothers and sisters who actually support and encourage the channel. Brothers and sisters, I do not on this platform ask for donations for more than one reason. Like in most cases, I go live, it's on the Shabbat. Brothers and sisters, we want to get into this particular aspect and discuss the matter of the Egyptians and the Hebrews. And that, brothers and sisters, the Egyptians were mentioned in the scriptures throughout the course of time, brothers and sisters. The Israelites have had contact with the Egyptians. Now, what we're going to discuss in this in part is the fact that my lady and I have been in Egypt. We're going to talk about that and show some pictures and how that particular aspect went down, if we will. So it gets also into the history of the Israelites, and it gets into the history of the Egyptians regarding the scriptures itself. So, without any further ado, giving honor and praise unto the Most High, let us get started. Thank you. Giving honor to the Creator of heaven and earth, the Most High. This presentation, was postponed to tonight. The reason is because a brother was busy trying to get things together in one's life and one's relationship and in one's family. We are happy to now present the matter. Please subscribe to the channel and share the video. If you find it in your heart to click like, please do so others can see. Thank you, brothers and sisters, in that particular case. Let us go on, if you will, to the next part. A volcanic eruption. The sister Sarai and I in Egypt. It was not a bad experience. Now, the volcanic eruption is just something that I particularly like. All right. The picture you see with it is a picture of the sister Sarai and myself when we were in Egypt. When we were in Egypt, all right, we went this year, 2021, and we stayed there for 11 days, which was expected to be 4 days, but that's a whole other subject in that particular case. What can I say about going to Egypt? Make sure you're going to need your passport. You're going to need your PCR test, the most recent one. You're going to need your visa. You're going to, brothers and sisters, not to talk business on Shabbat, make sure you bring extra cash and so forth. All right? Where we went into Egypt was in the city of Cairo, and we stayed in a pyramid called the Great Pyramid Inn. The sister Sarai is the one who proposed going to Egypt. It wasn't my idea. It was the sister's idea. And I was like, all right, cool, let's go. I honestly am not going to lie. I thought, not that she was playing games, but I didn't think it was that serious because we were supposed to go in August, and we postponed it from August to September. But in the end of August, I was sitting up there like, we ain't going. It's going to be postponed again. This going to happen. That's going to happen. Then we wound up going to get our passports. Once we got our passports, we knew what it was at that point. All right. So just want to sit there and mention that in that particular case. Okay, let's go on if we will, because there's 40 slides altogether. Her and I in the Pyramid of Sephrin of Dynasty 4, and a picture of my lady by the pyramid. Now, what you're looking at right there is on the left-hand side with me wearing my blue head covering. That's me and her inside of the pyramid itself. Now, when we walked into that, we had to walk down made steps. Now, these steps that were, quote, made is not a step that you're thinking about. It's a piece of metal that has been drilled or screwed into the pyramid floor. And you walk down that, and I was like, okay, cool. So we're going to see that. My lady was ahead of me, and she turned around and said, oh, we got to walk up now. There was no way in the world I was going to leave my lady inside of that hot, incubator-looking, narrow place. So I walked up with her. And when we walked up, what we saw was what you see in there. Now, this is, as stated, dated to the old kingdom of Egypt. Why does that kind of become important? Is because if you know and look at it, brothers and sisters, ancient Israel saw what we was looking at. Yeah, we know that the water that we see, like the Mediterranean, as we're going to show, brothers and sisters, right? Sorry. The Mediterranean, as we're going to show, brothers and sisters, was also the same water that the prophet Daniel dreamt of. So when we start talking about there being a small world, yeah. Now the pyramid that my lady is on there on the side is the Giza pyramid. I did not put in this presentation the pictures of our tour guides out of their personal privacy and respect, all right? But at the same token, we did have tour guides. All right, so just want to point that out for reason purposes. Let's go on, if we will, to the next slide. We by the Pyramid of Giza, and we by the camel. The camel I refuse to ride. Now, why do I point out that I refuse to ride that camel is because after going down, then up in that pyramid, then in order to get out, I had to go down and up. My legs were not feeling its best. So I decided to not ride the camel. The pyramid that you see behind her and I, and the pyramid that you see behind her, I, and the camel is the Pyramid of Giza. That dates back, brothers and sisters, to the old kingdom of Egypt. So ancient Israel saw the same thing in that particular case. Now, one of the things I respect about the tour guide, and he told us what a brother, no disrespect, kind of already knew, and that was the fact that the pyramids and the spaces next to it were graveyards. It's basically, and I say this in no disrespect, not trying to sound like a hypocrite, it kind of was an inflated ego of the pharaohs to want to make sure that their cemetery and their grave is one of the biggest things that the world can have ever seen. I asked our tour guide that when you're looking at a 60-foot image of Ramses the second and Abu Simbel in southern Egypt, is that kind of an inflated ego? And even the tour guide said, yeah. So just want to point that out. Now, brothers and sisters, within the past, say, 10 years, they have found more and more pyramids, which means that the story of Egypt can change as time goes along. All right? So the camel that you see there, believe it or not, is actually 5 years old. Maybe his birthday came around since. Maybe he turned 6. But they say the camel on average times does not live to be older than 25 years old. Let us go on. Let us go on to the next slide. We by the pyramid of Joshua of Dynasty 3 and the picture of Fahrenheit by the Giza pyramid. Now, what you are looking at, brothers and sisters, on the left-hand side is a picture of her and I embracing each other. Now, in Egypt, this was in the month of September. It was not cold, but the children of Israel ain't going to dress but so freely, even in the heat. Because what we also want to point out, not trying to be funny, and looking at I want to show a particular case. All right, we're going to get to it. Sorry about that. What you're looking at is a pyramid from Dynasty 3. And this is the area where Saqqara was. So this is the pyramid, or what they call the step pyramid. On the other side of it, there are images that they had of serpents. Now, for those who know anything about the Egyptian culture, believe it or not, those were things to let you know, do not travel but so far up inside of that. If we know ourselves as Israel, we know that the serpent is one of the things that the staff of Moses turned into. So the Egyptians were used to that. The Most High dealt with the Egyptians in the things in which they were already used to seeing and dealing with until the plague of flies. That's when they realized this is just not perhaps coming from one of the Egyptian things, because they did worship the fly and the sun and the Nile and the crocodile and the frog. In Panama, it is taught that you can take a frog and rub it on your skin if you have an infection and it cures it. But what the Egyptians, no disrespect intended, may have not understood is that the frog is not God. It has a creator itself. And that was supposed to be the light that Israel was supposed to bring. So let us continue on in this particular case. As you can see, we have happiness inside of that picture by Giza with our hands stretched out. Now, from the airplane. Now, if you look very carefully, you can see my lady in part on the left-hand side by the bottom of the window, because every time we fly or so, she gets the window seat. So I had to reach over across with my phone to take a picture of the Mediterranean. The Bible calls the Mediterranean in the book of Numbers Yama. Hayam Hagadol, the Great Sea, is the western border, or Yama. Yam means sea. So Yama means to the sea. And Yama is a Hebrew word also meaning west, W-E-S-T. So these are things just want to point out geographically, as we went over before, the madness in saying that the land of Israel is America, it can never be. So we just want to point things like that out. So what you're looking at on this particular side, on the right-hand side, is we was on Turkish Airlines. You may be able to see at the top of that particular PowerPoint there, their symbol. All right. But this is the beginning of Egypt and the land itself when we was going into Cairo. Now, let's go in, brothers and sisters. In Egypt, this was a great night, and we hope others will travel. And a sidebar. Now, that night that you're seeing there, we are in the desert that is in Cairo. All right. And, well, you can't see it now, but I'm wearing that same garment I was wearing then right now. But my point nonetheless is, not to be arrogant, you may see a brother was still rocking his fringes even inside of the land of Egypt. Now, one of the things we want to point out, you'll find a lot of Arabians. This goes back all the way to the time when in the 7th century CE or 7th century AD, when they went into the land of Egypt and they stayed there after the Roman occupation and did not leave. So the Arabs been there for a little while. And we want to talk about that too. Brothers and sisters, that night that we was there, we were dealing with the horse. That was the night that her and I was on a horse. You might see in one of the videos on the channel, More Yeshaya History Lessons Part 2 on YouTube. That's the channel. Subscribe to it. More Yeshaya History Lessons Part 2. And that's when you see us actually on YouTube on a horse. And I'm screaming about, talking about the Hyksos come and make way. All right. I'm not going to get disrespectful, but we come out of Brooklyn and the Bronx in New York City. There's a part when I was recording that the guy that was guiding the horse asked me to put the camera down. And I respected it. I didn't record certain things that, because there's, and I say this just coming out of Brooklyn, there's two parts, if you will. There is the beautiful area by Smith and Ninth by the F train, for those who know Brooklyn. And then there's New Lots by the 3 train. There's Park Slope in Brooklyn, for those who do know. And then there's Mother Gaston Boulevard off the 3 train, for those who do know. That part that the guy asked me to not record in Egypt, I don't even want to describe what I saw. But I will say this. Israel's supposed to be a light. When you find women running with their babies behind your carriage, trying to get $1 while they give you a water, that's real. When you find children going up to you because they figure you are an American, and it looked like somebody slapped her in her eye, and she talking about how she hungry, is real. When we were booking the flight and everything to come back, I don't remember seeing no ACS or BCW organization for Cairo. There are certain parts in there that's just, for the lack of a better term, real. They run up to you and ask you for money. Black parents in America generally say, you better not go outside this house and ask nobody for mama, slap the fire out of you. Over there, the parents are on the side while their children are running up to you as a tourist. We got into Egypt, the day was, because remember, it's a 6-hour difference between New York City and Egypt. We got there in Egypt on a Thursday. We left on a Wednesday, got there on a Thursday, Egypt time. And when we got to the hotel, there were already people when we went outside asking us for stuff. I want to take back here to describe a little bit of what happened that I didn't show on the thing here. Looking at the left-hand side, the pyramid in Saqqara. It's not the Saqqara pyramid, by the way. It's the Doja pyramid in Saqqara. Saqqara is the name of a town. All right? Now, or a nome, N-O-M-E. Now, let's look at this right here real quick, right? There was a dude that kept on walking, talking about he had Egyptian gods. He's, mind you, to all intents and purposes, he looked like an Arabian, and maybe his religion was Islam, but nonetheless, he's in Egypt trying to sell trinkets of Ma'at and Hathor, Egyptian goddesses. And I said, no, I'm not interested in that. They go hard when they see you as a tourist, to where they even have a black picture of Cleopatra. Cleopatra was not black. Cleopatra was a Ptolemy. That's that Greek era when they was ruling in there. So, looking at it like that, I had to tell the dude, "You're my man. I'll give you $1. Just go away." And he felt the way because his feelings was like, "I'm here to work to hustle. I'm not asking you for nothing free." And I felt the way because I don't know if you saw my fringes, or you who said to believe in the Quran, but I'm not perfect. But who you call Musa, those are the laws I subscribe to. And I don't mean no disrespect intended to brothers or sisters listening who may be messianic, but working over in Manhattan now, they got a lot of missionaries going over talking about God the Father and God the Mother. And they asked me, do I believe in God? And I said, yes, I believe in Yahweh. I don't believe in Christ. And then they just walk away. That happened about maybe 3 times in the past week. And so looking at it like that, sometimes you just got to let it be known what it is. And eventually, toward the end of our stay in Egypt, I had to tell the people who were trying to keep on selling us their idols or whatever, no, it's about the laws of Musa. Quickly, those Arabs, those Muslims turned to the side. But when they were selling their oils, not to talk business, they got paid. Yeah, they got paid. When they were selling the scarf that you may see my queen wearing right there, that kind of scarf like that. Yeah, I patronize that. I'm not buying your gods. The hotel we was in, shout out to the people there, and I say this in no disrespect. When we got there at first, they had over by the TV a picture of Ma'at, the Egyptian goddess. And I took it and turned it around so it won't be seen. When we went out to go shopping, me and my lady, when we came back, right, sweetheart, they took that picture away so it didn't even have to be turned around. I guess they felt like, oh, there's a reason why my aunt ain't getting no love from, Saraya and Yeshaya. Of course, they know our names on the passport. We ain't got to go there. You understand? But they knew something like, okay, let's not even keep that in their room. And it was a very cool hotel, by the way. But let's go on and continue on in this particular presentation, all right? All right. Went over that. All right, in Egypt. All right, now, notes on how to smash a lie. The first slave owner in America was not only a black man, he went to court and demanded it. That's not Anthony Johnson, brothers and sisters. That picture you see there is a man named Lewis Hayden. And I'm going to type that inside of the chat. All right? Because they swear black people don't study or read or can put 2 to 2 together. All right? That's Lewis Hayden. Hmm? Oh, I got it. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Sarai. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, Heyden or Hayden. Lewis Hayden. That's who that is. A guy is a picture of actually in the matter of the 1800s. That's not brothers and sisters Anthony Johnson. So they just took a person, Anthony Johnson. How did a black man such as Anthony Johnson, whose record is stated to have come from Angola, how is he named Anthony coming out of Angola in the 1600s? The Portuguese record described him as Antonio the Negro, for those who are interested. But they're going to show a picture of Lewis Hayden and then say that it's Anthony Johnson, not realizing that this is dated to the 1600s. They didn't dress like that with bow ties as you see there as a black man in the 1600s. That's the 1800s regalia in dressing. So you may want to sit there and get your history up. So let's look at this, brothers and sisters. In 1654, it was time for Anthony to release John casa, a black indentured servant. Now, one of the things I contend as a moray or as a teacher is when people try to say those were not slaves, those are indentured servants. Indentured servants in 1741 rebelled against the enslavers. If they were so happy with the terminology as they were called indentured servants, why would they go up against the enslavers? So be it you call it indentured servitude or a slave, the fact that the person is feeling strengthened enough to rebel against it should tell us something. All right. So now it says Anthony Johnson sued Robert Parker in the Northampton court in 1654. In 1655, the court ruled that Anthony Johnson could hold John Cass indefinitely. The court gave judicial sanction for blacks to own a slave of their own race. Now, this is how you know this is a person who made this meme in their feelings and didn't sit back to think. First, you showing Lewis Hayden. Secondly, the other matter is who gave Anthony Johnson in the 1650s the Northampton court? Who were those judges in Northampton and Virginia in the 1650s? See, you didn't think somebody was going to do due diligence. There was no black judges inside of the Northampton court in the 1650s. So when you say the judges gave a black or the right to hold someone of their own race, that line right there just go to show you that they didn't think that somebody was going to do some thinking and research to be like, no, his own race didn't allow that. Same question asked. Anthony Johnson, according to the book called Slavery in the Making of America by Horton and Horton, right? In that book, it said that Anthony Johnson died in 1670. With Anthony Johnson dying in 1670, his children eventually lost the land that they had in Virginia. How did that happen? Don't ever go around talking about the first slave owner in America was a black man named Anthony. Because how did that black man get the name Anthony? Let's go on. What I did here was just some notes. Where did they get that picture from? All right, from Washington to Monroe. Their images were made in sculptures or paintings. Washington had slaves since age 11. Willem, a Dutchman in 1625, received a license to trade slaves in Brazil, Virginia, and New Guinea. Now, brothers and sisters, I want to, if we will, let's do it like this. Right? If we will. Let's look at this here. It said Willem, a Dutchman in 1625, received a license to trade slaves in Brazil, Virginia, and New Guinea. New Guinea is in West Africa. Virginia, we know, is in America. In 1625, right? So how, if that be the case, can we look at 1654 in the same state of, or in that time said colony of Virginia, and we can see right here that Willem a Dutchman, because they didn't think black people were going to put two to two together. You're supposed to be with the people when they start talking about this said virus spreading, going down to see a ball drop in New York City. That's what you're supposed to be doing. You're not supposed to be presenting information about history and talking about how you and your lady are happy. No. You're supposed to go on freak night like it is on Shabbat in these nations, going out there to sit there and have their little festivities. That's what's expected as they worship Janus going into quote unquote January, the Roman goddess with two heads that they said saw the past and the future. That's what January is named after. So it says, brothers and sisters, Dutch in New York had slaves in 1646. All right. If the Dutch in New York had slaves in 1646, how are you talking about, brothers and sisters, a matter of 1654 when this right here is 1646? But Anthony Johnson is supposed to be the pioneer of such. Brothers and sisters, such is not the case. What else do we want to point out, if we will, brothers and sisters, is this. 1646. Do you know 1646 is an area code for Manhattan? 1646. 1646, the same digits. They memorialized slavery, brothers and sisters. Is it a far stretch what I'm trying to convey with that? I don't know. But let's go on, if we will. Right? Anthony Johnson is said to be from Angola. He was not the pioneer of American slavery. The Dutch had the Axum slave port. They had built the Almina slave port. The Dutch took the English slave port, built in 1631 into the year 1665. So, brothers and sisters, if the English had a slave port in 1631, how are we sitting up there talking about 1654 was when it was supposed to have been the pioneering of such? All right. Cortez, in the issue with Mexico, conquest had 300 blacks with him as slaves. In the year 1519. So, brothers and sisters, no, we can't sit there and try to focus on a said date of 1654. So this is why you find people trying to dismiss the matter of what happened with slavery. Did you know that in the land of Egypt and Northeast Africa, they don't have the book of Exodus read? Did you know that they want to sit there and not have it to be known that the ancient Egyptians had the children of Israel as slaves? So let the slave tell his or her own story. Because nobody makes up a story of being enslaved, because that's embarrassing to your granddaughters. I couldn't stand up to that man, grandbaby. No man makes a story up like that. So let's go on, if you will, to the next part. All right. Anthony Johnson is the pioneer of American slavery, ? There were blacks as slaves since 1565 in St. Augustine, Florida. 1650s is when Anthony Johnson is the pioneer of American slavery, when people in Florida were being enslaved since the 1560s. Because, see, they try to say then because that was ran by the Spanish, because Florida was never a colony and it became a state in 1845. Just like they try to say, oh, Oklahoma was not a slave state. It wasn't a state, brothers and sisters. Oklahoma was not a state to 1907 or 1908. By then, you already had the flourishing matter of what was called Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Black Wall Street, which not playing profit. When they bombed Tulsa, Oklahoma in the year 1921, and they destroyed that black market in Oklahoma, is it not kind of weird that the stock market crashed before the year 1930? Could that be retribution for what they did to Tulsa, Oklahoma? And people throwing themselves off the ledge because they only had $1 million in the 1920s? The nations know the Most High exists. The Most High saw when they fed the children of Israel to alligators as alligator bait. and not trying to play prophet, now your children go in the zoo and then they get attacked. The Most High is not the God that they tried to tell us about. He said, leave your fatherless children and I will raise them. Do you know what that's talking about in Isaiah? He's going to deal with your children on account of what you did to his children, like we read last Shabbat in Exodus 4:22 and 23. Israel is my son, my firstborn. I have said unto thee, let my son go that he may serve me. And if you will not let my son go, I will slay your son, your firstborn. See, the Most High deals with not turning other cheek. That's why we want to get on his good side. You understand? Let us go on in this particular matter. Brothers and sisters, the sister Sarai and I, in the book we are working on, Hebrew for Couples, Volume 4. All right. This is her and I in Egypt. All right. That was a night to remember. We was on a boat called the Andrea, and it went up and down the Nile. And when I think about the Nile as an Israelite, I think about Joseph and I think about Moses, because they saw the Nile too. So in Hebrew, they refer to the Nile as Yaor. I'm gonna type that in the room. All right. As Yaor. And the Egyptians refer to it, brothers and sisters, as Iteru. All right. So just want to point that out for edification purposes. Okay. So let us go on, if we will, to the next part. Thank you for the time. All righty. So let us look at this here, brothers and sisters, if we will, right? Didn't mean to do that. Sorry. As you can see there, it says Egyptians and Hebrews. Now, that picture that you see of the woman there in Egypt, that's an actual painting on one of the banks in Cairo. That's not something that's from Google Images. I had the lady Fab Aim Edits impose my face on that picture, but that's actually a picture in Cairo about Egypt. And that's how the lady looked there. They know, just like the Egyptian president in the 1950s or so, Ansar Sadat said, you left black and you trying to come back white. Could that have been a precursor to the war that they wanted to have with Egypt, the Israeli state? Because I told you already, I saw them sit there and show images of black people as that. When my lady and I was in Egypt, this Arabian dude did say to us, welcome back. I don't know what he meant as an Israelite, because they know we did House of Israel, or did he not think that we knew ourselves as Israel, and so forth. The people that we've been in Egypt wanted to touch my lady's hair. They wanted to let her hold their baby. This lady, Arab lady, with her daughters who were able, about maybe 7 and older, they walked up to my lady and gave their baby to my Isha, to my lady, and took pictures. Her Ish says to me, oh, that's just my wife and my son. Now, my lady is clean, but they don't know that. I know it. They don't know she just came from the bathroom and do what they do over at 34th Street in the public bathroom. I know her to be clean, but they don't know that. But here you are letting the woman of Judah hold your baby while you take pictures. This Arabian lady came behind my lady when we went through one of the checkpoints going into the museum or going into the area where they was going to show us a mosque or something like that, and just touched my lady's hair like from behind, like, oh, just reached out and touched somebody else's hair. We don't know where your hands been. And I'm not trying to say they welcomed us in Egypt and I'm here to bash against them. But even some of the coolest people we met there, like, no, who you call Musa, the Arabic for Torah, we don't eat the gamal. We don't eat camel. Some of the best tour guides and people we met there was like, camel is fleshy and it's good. No, it ain't. So if you're in Egypt or know anything like that, stop reaching out and just touching on people's hair like that. My lady's spirit ain't the same spirit every black woman got. Maybe they already picked up on her spirit, but you touch the wrong sister's hair, that ain't good. Every lady is not blessed with the spirit that my lady got. Don't do that. But what does it say in Zechariah? They're going to want to touch the hem of the garment of he who is of Judah and say, we want to follow you, for we know God is with you. They can't help but want to touch your hair. They can't help but want to sit there and be around you. They know who's who. We went through slavery and amnesia. They didn't. They kept them records going on. Let's go on, if you will, to the next part. The sister Sarai and I by the Pyramid of Saqqara. All right, so that's us showing the book, and that's her and I embracing each other in Northeast Africa. The first day we got there with our tour guide. Our tour guide is the one who took the picture, by the way. And it was a great experience. Let's go on, if we will, to the next part. The book, Egypt Talking Writing and the Sister Sarai in Egypt. Now, this is the new cover for Egypt Talking Writing. As you can see, her picture is in it and mine is as well. And I did it with the permission of my lady. Why do I want to emphasize that? Yeah, you a couple. Yeah, you're courting with each other and learning each other. But you don't sit there and present something like that to the world, like on a book cover, without asking your significant other's permission. Your lady is not your handmaid. Your handmaid is the word Amma. Your lady is the word Isha. Those are two different words. She's the handmaiding of the Most High, but she's not your handmaid. So we just want to point that out. And that's a picture of me on the other side next to what they refer to as the Hyksos in Dynasty 15. All right, let's go on, if we will. All right, the sister Sarai and I in Egypt by the Pyramid of Giza. Now, and I say this in no disrespect, she was not literally holding the rock. I'm going to maybe spoil it and tell you what they did. They tell you hold your arms up in the air, and with your camera phone, they have a rock in their hand and position it to make it look like you're holding the rock. That's how that's done. You're not holding up the rock itself. The dudes that were the people who had us on the camel, I had my lady with the camel. I give them respect because they saw her and I as a couple and gave me the rope to guide my lady. It's just like, and I don't show the picture, but there's a store called Cotton Flower over in Egypt, right? And I say no disrespect intended. Some Israelites on fake book, meta, whatever it's called now, elder, man, woman, especially male, don't stand between a man and his lady in the picture. Maybe we could learn something from Nome in the East. I stood on one side of my lady. The Arab dude stood beside me. My lady stood beside me. And the other Arab dude stood beside her. I didn't show their pictures out of respect for their privacy. I had my hand on my lady's back and her shoulder. He had his hand down next to him. They know certain things about culture with certain things like that. You ain't got no business taking a picture with you and a married couple and you a male and you standing between a man and his lady. That's not culture. Why? Because some people get in their feelings and you got to respect that. Those guys wanted us to come back in. I noticed they kept on when we was in that store, they kept on trying to push their book bag to me. I don't know why. It was like, you want a book bag? And they kept on trying to push the Egyptian sheets. Do you want Egyptian satin sheets? Do you want Egyptian sheets? We got book bag. We got sheets. And like, no, we good. We came in for what we were. Oh, okay. Anything else? Let us know. You know. So, I mean, even the book of Proverbs talk about the sheets of Egypt. You understand? And Proverbs 7. But yeah. So this is my lady showing her beauty. And this is me inside of the Egyptian Museum. We went to two different Egyptian museums. One is called the Egyptian Museum. The other one is called the Egyptian Museum of Civilization. The Egyptian Civilization Museum, the second one we went to, where I'm at there pictured with the kente thing on my head, right? That's where the mummies of Merneptah and Siptah and Hatshepsut and Queen Tagi, who was the wife of Akhenaten, is at. I remember asking the tour guide, so do they happen to have the mummy of Namer of Dynasty 1? And the tour guide was like, no, you don't have that from the Old Kingdom. So conscious community, stop asking us for the pictures or the tomb of Moses or Aaron or Ezekiel, because Dynasty 1 and 2, you don't show or can show where those guys are buried at. So if they could be shown to be buried like they try to come at us as Israel, that means they didn't exist. Namer didn't exist. Shout out to the brother Zion Lex. I remember he pointed out to me the Hebrew word for leopard is Namer. Namer was one of the first Egyptian kings, and he used to wear a leopard thing in his pictures. So the Hebraic understanding is not that far-fetched. All right? So just want to point that out. Next part here. Now, when we was inside the place called the Egyptian Museum, the first one, not the Egyptian Civilization Museum, that's when you saw the thing there with the nose chipped off. And they showed it up there like it ain't nothing. Like, yeah, somebody came along and chipped off the nose, and we still going to show it as artwork. For you to want to cut off somebody's nose, that's demonic. Think about a fight, for instance. You say, yo, I'm going to punch him in his nose. That's anger. That's when they go deliberate into something. They took a chisel and cut the nose off. That right there is just ridiculous. What I noticed about Egypt, why everyone think Israelites always bash Egypt, is even though we could say Ramses may have had an inflated ego, if Ramses wasn't getting respect from his father or from the society, he set up another city. Yeah, they took over each other's cities, and yeah, they erased their names off of records and so forth to change their names. That's why it's kind of chronology is kind of difficult when you know that aspect of it. But the ancient Egyptians used to, in war, when they killed you in war, they would take and cut off your phallus, and they would cut off your right hand. They would castrate the dead and cut off your right hand. So just want to point that out. This is me and my lady Sarai embracing ourselves, and me inside of the Egyptian Museum, called just that, the Egyptian Museum, next to a statue of Amenemhat the Third. Now, Amenemhat the Third is spoken about 5 or 6 times in a book that I wrote, because he didn't have a son. He had a daughter named Sobek Nefru, who was the last ruler of Dynasty 12. But before Sobek Nefru, you had Amenemhat IV. And the body of Amenemhat IV is not found. But he was not the biological son of Amenemhat III. Exodus 11 says Moses was great in the land of Egypt. Great house in Egyptian is Pa-O. By the time the Middle and later on New Kingdom came about, the people who were ruling Egypt, known before such as a Nisut or a Kuti, they began to call themselves Pa-O, or in English terminology, Pharaoh. Moses was found by the daughter of Pharaoh inside the Nile River. She called him Musos in Egyptian, meaning child. Masha in Hebrew means that which is drawn from water. That's how you get Moshe. So she called him a child, and in our way, he was called that which is drawn from water. The Egyptian term Thutmos means that Thut is born. Muse, Musos in Egyptian means a child. So if Amenemhat III did not have a biological son, and you can't find Amenemhat IV's tomb, and Moses was great, do you follow where I'm going with this, O house of Israel? Not playing salesman. Get the book Egypt Talking Writing. Note from the book I wrote on chronology. The standard chronology of the 12th dynasty has been remodeled over the years in the light of intensive studies and dated monumental records. Oxford history from Oxford University, you know, where Malcolm taught back in 1963, 1964. Oxford usually is not challenged. So if the standard chronology of the 12th dynasty has been remodeled, let's go on. The standard chronology given of the Egyptian timeline leaves us with more questions than answers. The pharaohs did not make monuments of themselves only. So we can see something built by Ramses II, but it is to be attributed in honor of Amenemhat III and is named with Amenemhat III. And since many are under the understanding that the chronology of Egyptian history is all right, people question other records. What am I pointing out? Ramses II can make something in honor of a previous pharaoh. And all the pharaohs had what they call, and I'm not trying to say I'm into Egyptian gods, they had what they call Heru, what the Greeks called Horus. They had their birth name, and then they had their Horus name or their Heru name. So in light of that, being called in Egyptian culture the son of Horus, for the lack of a better term, that means whatever you did was done in the name of their Egyptian god, so that could have been done by any pharaoh. So you in Egyptian culture didn't really do anything. In Egyptian ideology, it was the god of Egypt working through you. So you can have Ramses doing something in honor of another pharaoh. So we just want to point that out for reasonable purposes in that particular way. All right? So let us go on and continue. Since many now doubt the writings left behind from Manetho and base the timeline on Abydos Saqqara and Turin Papyrus, we must deal with it with a fine-tooth comb. Let's go on. The Egyptians in history and in the Bible in origin. The Egyptians stated their origins came from the Rwenzori Range in eastern Africa. This area is located in modern Uganda area of today. So the ancient Egyptians, they didn't state they came originally from the land of Egypt. They said they come from the land that is today in Uganda. Why do we want to point that out? When that lady went against John Henry Clark, talking about the Egyptians could have been of different colors and so forth and so on in the ancient world, such would have never been the case. Because the ancient Egyptians said they came from Uganda. The people of Uganda were black. Intermission, brothers and sisters. Sorry, I have no music. Shalom, can I be heard? Give me a 1, please. If I can be heard, please give me a 1, brothers and sisters. Sorry about the intermission. If I can be heard, give me a 1. All righty. So let's look at this. The ancient Egyptians in history stated that they come from a place that today is in the area of Uganda. Uganda is by Ethiopia. Brothers and sisters. So, with that being the case, let's go on. In the Bible, it states that the land of Patros is the origin of the Egyptians. In Ezekiel, that is. And I will turn the captivity of Egypt and will cause them to return into the land of Patros, into the land of their origin. And they shall be there a lowly kingdom. So, just want to point that out. What are we trying to convey in that particular case? Is this, brothers and sisters, right? Let's go on and show it. A map showing the land of Egypt and where Uganda is. So, if we look right here, here's Egypt and Cairo. That's where me and my lady was. Here you have the blue Nile, the white Nile, then just here the Nile. So you have Addis Ababa, which is the capital of Ethiopia, right? You have Lake Victoria in Tanzania, and the Nile starts, brothers and sisters, with this here in Kenya. Uganda is right next to Kenya, and this is the area where the Egyptians that you see over in there said they came from. So if the Egyptians came from that area, according to their own volition and their own writings, the Bible's not that far-fetched to be stating that they came from Patros, which is in the area of Sudan of today. Because here you see Sudan, here you see Uganda. Now, according to some people, sidebar, the tribe of Dan is how Sudan got its name. In the book From Babylon to Timbuktu, let's go in, O house of Israel. Rudolph Windsor stated that Sudan was referred to as Bilad al-Sudan, which in Arabic means land of the black. If, according to some, that the tribe of Dan is how the word Sudan became to be. And if you know anything, say with Arabic, Bilad al-Sudan being the land of the black, were the Danites black? I'm not trying to promote what some may call racism. We want to help set truth in the earth. When I began to study Hebrew hard back in 1996, thank the Most High, when I was 16, I knew from then that it had to belong to a people of color, the language itself. You understand? Afro-Asiatic languages such as Amharic and Aramaic and Arabic and Hebrew are all cousins. We pointed this out before on the channel, Marvin Yeshaya History Lesson. Subscribe to it. Okay, let's look at this. Here you have, from Africa, in the Sudan, southern Egypt area, a living, breathing human being to where the true Egyptians were pushed. When you read in part like Alfred Butler's book, The Arab Invasion of Egypt, in the last 30 years of Roman occupation of Egypt, there's a book you can get online, right? Here you see a true person of that area, living, breathing, walking, and talking, and a picture dating all the way into the matter of the new kingdom of Egypt and how they look. Brothers and sisters, it ain't that far-fetched to sit there and see what ancient Israel was looking at inside of ancient Egypt. You understand? The Egyptians and Hebrews. Shout out to the sister Fab Aim for putting or imposing my face into that as I asked her to do. But again, what you see here is actually part of one of the banks in BANKS. You know, when you put your ATM card, that is on their window in Egypt. Yeah, the Arab version of Egypt. Not too hard to figure out. All right. And then that's me there in the picture too. All right. So let's go on. A short matter of the Hyksos and some history. All right. Thank you to the people who pressed 1 because I can't hear myself. I appreciate it. The Hyksos were called that by the Greeks. We're not going to read this entire thing here, but we just want to point something out. The Hyksos were called that by the Greeks. They themselves were called Haiku Shosret, and they were rulers, not the regular people of the Asiatics. All right, now, the individual nation of the Asiatics belong to is Amalekite, Hebrew, Israelite, Babylonian, Kassite, Assyrian, and an Anastasia Papyrus Edom. Now, what do we want to point out here? Brothers and sisters, Babylon was started by Nimrod, who was an Ethiopian, a Cushite. But as Josephus pointed out, you got 2 different Ethiopias. You got the Ethiopia in Asia, and you got the Ethiopia in colonized Africa of today. So when we start talking about getting your passport and flying and seeing things that you've been reading about and talking about, like I have cousins in, and let's go there. I'm not showing their pictures. I got cousins in Winston, North Carolina, who said it's Shabbat. I'm gonna keep the language clean, but you know how some of our people act. This is blood family, so they feel comfortable. What you need to do is stop buying those books and go and see the places you're talking about. My N-word. I'm like, okay. My N-word. Did you go there yet? We saw you when you was online with your lady. Did you learn something? Did you find out whether your book is true or not? Get up off of your N-word. That's how my cousins talk to me, and go and fly around. Now, these are my cousins who, no disrespect, in North Carolina, never, in certain cases, been north of the Mason-Dixon. So they never been to Pennsylvania. The Mason-Dixon divided north and south in the eastern coast of the United States. But here you are telling me that I need to sit there and visit the places I write about. But you know what? You respect the message and not the messenger. If they okay sitting in Winston, Salem, North Carolina, doing whatever they do, nothing wicked like that, that message is for me to take. It ain't for them to fly there. It's for me, perhaps. And it's not to be arrogant, but you can't sit there and say, you know what, they don't do it, so I'm not going to sit. No, that's not how you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be like my lady always tells me, Yahi order Yeshayahu. Be a like Isaiah. Be a like Yeshaya. You understand? For your flesh and blood who has no intentions on ever coming to New York because they born in the South, my mama here, grandmama died here, she's buried way yonder. I'm there like, okay, I'm gonna just leave that one alone. You understand? But looking at it like that, brothers and sisters, accept the message, even if you don't think the messengers are living their own message. I remember not getting sidetracked when Shabbat. I was on my way in New York to the congregation when it was there in Queens in New York off Linden Boulevard called Hashaba Yisrael. I'm 14. I'm going to those who do know out of Rochdale to the Q85 to Linden and Merrick Boulevard, get to the Q4, back when they used to give the paper transfers. All right. I'm walking on Shabbat to get to the bus. Yo, shorty, yo, come here, yo. Hey, yo, come here. And I'm there like, these guys see me throughout the course of the week. Let me go over and see what they're about. So I go over there. I'm in my garments. This is on the 7th day. And it's not that I'm perfect. They was like, yo, they didn't know what words to use exactly, but you get the spirit. Everything ain't got to be nitpicky. Yo, that religion, we know it ain't religion. You understand? Yo, that religion you into, you'll stay with that. You don't want to be doing other things. They said one of their friends just got 55 to life for, quote, catching 2 bodies because of drug dealing money. That man made no good with black people. You sold drugs to black women and children, perhaps. And when somebody, quote, messed up your money, you killed them, put them to death. So now you're doing 55 to life. Nobody won. You gave black people poison. You killed 2 black males. And you now in there for the rest of your life. So I'm saying all of that to say that you may need to sometimes hear the message, even if the messenger don't abide by it. Don't reject the message if the messenger is a walking contradiction. Take the wisdom. So I just want to point that out. Sidebar, right? Another piece of information for my Lord is that we have just let the Shasud tribes of Edom pass the fortress of Merneptah of Tejeku to the lakes of Pitom of Merneptah of Tejeku in order to revive themselves and revive their flocks from the great life force of Pharaoh. That's from the Anastasia Papyrus. It talks about Edom. Edom is who? You read about Edom inside of Assyrian records of Tiglath-Pileser and the rest of them, or Shalmaneser III more specifically, about Udumu and their kings, Udumu being Edom. And then you read about Edom inside of Egyptian records, as pointed out here, Anastasia Papyrus. Edom is the brother of Israel and the grandchildren of Abraham. So how do you have a nation whose roots go back to Abraham of Chaldea, but you want to say Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob didn't exist in your conscious community while you pimping Egypt? So if you want to talk about Egypt, let's talk Egypt. Let's go in, brothers and sisters. And this is not for debate purposes. This is in Egypt by the Merneptah stele. This is a picture of me. My lady took this picture of me by the Merneptah stele inside of the Egyptian Museum. Now, I'm not going to lie. I was going to sit there and ask her to do a recording, and I was going to go over it, but they don't allow you to do that in their museum. Just like I couldn't take a picture of the mummies that was there. They don't allow you to do it. And they watch you like a hawk. They watch you in that museum like a hawk. Oh, do they watch you? Okay. So I just want to point that out, okay? Next part, if you will. The 10 and 6 souls, they were Amalekites in her book. This is the book that my lady Sarai Michaela wrote. It's a book of poetry. And on this side, we see here the 10 and 6 souls. Now, let's go into something real quick, if we will, right? Brothers and sisters. These Hyksos, being the Amalekites, remember when Israel left out of Egypt? The first war they had was with who? Amalek. These Hyksos were easily able to get into Egypt because remember, Pharaoh's best army drowned in the sea. So Exodus 17, talking about Israel and Amalek fighting at Rephidim, which is inside the Sinai, this is the images of how ancient Edomites looked. They have locks, brothers and sisters. Those are braids and twists and locks when you look at it. These are things we want to point out for edification purposes, if we will. These 10 and 6 later on became the rulers in what they call Dynasty 15. And then again, there's also her book on the side for those who are interested. All right, but we just want to point this out, if we will, for reasonable purposes. Let's go on and close out. Citing from the book I wrote, Egypt Talking Writing. I contend that the Pharaoh of the Exodus was not Ramses as depicted in the movie The Ten Commandments. I lean toward the matter of the Exodus occurring in the matter of Dynasty 13. The Pharaoh's body, Neferhotep I, never having been found. The son of Neferhotep, Ha'ankef, did not reign after him. The Pharaoh after Neferhotep was his brother Seathor. So when Elohim said, "Let my son go, and if not, I will slay your son, your firstborn." So Ha'ankef never took the throne, being the son of Neferhotep. They know the Most High exists. There is in the Sudan called the Temple of West Amara, and the Temple of Soleb, where they said Yahweh is our enemy inside of Egyptian records. Hatshepsut, whose mummy my lady and I did see, was a Hamite woman. She was nationalistic. Let us praise Amot for getting rid of the Amu or the Asiatics out of our land. What did Joseph say? Don't leave me in here with these Egyptians in this burial place. Take my body when the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob comes and bring me to Canaan land and bury me there among my people, the Israelites. Don't leave me in Egypt. See, unlike many of the Black indigenous, as they call themselves, like no disrespect intended, the brother who is or was the governor of, or lieutenant governor of Virginia. We built America, so we're going to stay here. Joseph helped build Egypt. No, but my roots go back there. So yeah, you can be a light there, but you don't forget where you come from. Talking about it ain't where you from, it's where you at. Yes, and in part no. Because you can't forget where you come from just because you blew up somewhere else or because you put so much time into something or something or someone else. You still may have to go back, like it says in Isaiah 13. It shall be as a chaste road, and everyone will go back to his own land. Many Israelites who present Much good information stated the exodus occurring in Dynasty 13 from Tel El Daba is a strong case because when the 10 and 6 were able to enter Egypt and they took advantage. So these are things we just want to point out for reasonable purposes. All right, let's go on. According to Neferhotep III, eventual ruler, Thebes, which is in going towards southern Egypt, during that time was the worst of a food shortage. He tried to defend the city when the advancing Hyksos were coming. The Apocrypha has a prophecy in the book of Ezra about food shortages. I work over by Madison Square Garden. You should go and see the CVS and the Dwayne Reed shells. When I was staying in South Carolina in a place called Chester, I remember seeing how the Walmart stores began to sit there and look. There's a food shortage coming. Shema Yisrael, hear, O Israel. Let's take the wisdom our ancestor Joseph said, store up because it's going to get crazy. And these people are ready, waiting, brothers and sisters, for 16 minutes from now to sit there and see a ball drop, not realizing they're talking about a disease in the same place. Who was blind but my servant Jacob, Isaiah asked. Oh yeah, there's a lot of black people out there. Hey, it's no snow in New York. Hey, it's a little bit warm. Ze'ed HaShabbat, Israel's supposed to be inside one way or the other. So we ain't got no business looking for a ball to drop. This ain't our New Year. We already know that. Our New Year starts when we left up out of the land of Egypt over 3,000 years ago. Just want to point that out. All right. Sorry about that. Citing from Alan Gardner, again, with the time, we're not going to read all of this. Like the figures quoted for the Shasu and Bedouins, the Koreans, who may have derived the name, extended to all Palestinians and Syrians. From the Hurrian invasions for the north, immediately preceding is a reference to the Apiru, a much-discussed term which we cannot afford to ignore. A few years ago, it was confidently asserted that these people were identical to the Hebrews of the Old Testament. The Hapiru, Habiru, Apiru. Belonging to no fixed ethnic groups in Egyptian texts, they appear as Asiatic prisoners employed in stone quarries. Let's look at this. This is actually inside of the museum inside of Egypt as well. Oh, they're not slaves. They're all working. Then why is your man there where the highlight is at? And I want to sit there and circle this real quick before we close out. All right. If we got the pin here, you see where the circle is there? If everyone there was just all hands on deck, why is he sitting down with a staff in his hand when the people are making bricks? Just like the children of Israel was made to make bricks. Just like the mud brick pyramids that we spoke about on the channel. Let's go on, if we will, and close out, brothers and sisters, all right? Citing from Jeremiah the prophet, thus saith the Lord, behold, I will give Pharaoh Hophra, king of Egypt, into the hand of his enemies, and into the hand of them that seek his life, as I gave Zedekiah, king of Judah, into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, his enemy, and that sort his life. This is Hophra, again, shown there with the nose chipped off, that Jeremiah was talking about. Jeremiah was talking about, in that case there, for the lack of a better term, a black man who was ruling in Egypt and Dynasty 26. The 26th dynasty of Egypt, brothers and sisters, was a native Egyptian dynasty. This Hophra that you see in Jeremiah 46, that's a picture of the guy that he was talking about. Let's go on, if you will, to the next part. Notes on history. Hophra is called Apries by Herodotus. He ruled in the era of Dynasty 26, which was an Egyptian native dynasty. He was the grandson of Necho. Necho is mentioned in 2 Kings 23 as the assassinator of Josiah, the king of Judah. This is during the 7th century BCE, when the Egyptians wanted to help the Babylonians, help the Assyrians against the Babylonians. Let's go on and close out. Citing from Jeremiah the prophet, the young lions have roared upon him and let their voice resound, and they have made his land desolate. His cities are laid waste without inhabitant. The children also of North and Tapanhes feed upon the crown of your head. North is Memphis. Tapanhes is called Daphne by the Greeks. What are we talking about here in Jeremiah 2? The Egyptians made leagues in part with the Israelites in order to sit there and have a way to get further into Asia to defend brothers and sisters, the Assyrians who were being defeated by the Babylonians. Mention of the matter of Elephantine. We discussed this on the channel, so there's no need to even have to read this. You can go into the matter of the thing here and read it on your own about Elephantine. All right, notes on history. There are 32 dynasties in ancient Egypt. Of them, the 15th and 16th were Hyksos, the 22nd Libyan, the 25th Kushite, the 27th Persian, the 31st Persian, the 32nd Greeks. The Hyksos was when the true Egyptians were ruling in dynasty 14 and 17 in southern Egypt. The era called the Second Intermediate Period is also of co-regencies. Now, a co-regency is when you got two kings ruling at the same time in the same country. So when they give the chronological timeline with names one after the other, we have to know that some of those names that's after the other was actually next to each other when they were ruling. That's why the timeline going according only to Egypt is not right. All right, now. And the Lord commanded me at that time to teach you statutes and judgments, that ye might do them in the land where you go over to possess it. Deuteronomy chapter 4. Take ye therefore good heed unto yourselves, for you saw no manner of similitude on the day that Yah spoke unto you in Horeb out of the midst of the fire. Now, I'm not perfect, but to the Israelite brothers and sisters who say that we can't keep Shabbat, or that Shabbat rotates and is not quote unquote on what we call Friday evening to Saturday evening, right? One of the things they say is that we don't read about the observance of the Shabbat until Exodus 16, when Israel was told to keep the Shabbat. But that's not true. The first one to keep the Shabbat was who? Yah. In in Genesis 2. The first one to keep the Shabbat was the Most High. So are we not to think that Adam, Seth, Canaan, Enos, Mahalalel, Lamech, Noah, Shem, Aprakshad, Eber, are we to not think that they knew of the Shabbat? The Shabbat was not created in Exodus. The Shabbat was created in Genesis. Just say you like the lady, so you take her out on quote Saturday, Ak. That's all that is. Let's go on to the next part. These you corrupt yourselves and make you a graven image, the similitude of any figure, the likeness of male or female, the likeness of any beast that is on the earth, the likeness of any winged fowl that flieth in the air, the likeness of anything that creepeth up on the ground, the likeness of any fish that is in the waters beneath the earth. Let's go on. The Hebrews are not the Egyptians. Let's go. Three distinct cosmogonies, were formulated in the earliest time of Egyptian creation stories. The three were that of Heliopolis, Hermopolis, and Memphis. In Egyptian, Heliopolis is Ayunu. That's where Joseph's wife came from, On in the Hebrew. Hermopolis is Kemenu. Memphis was called Menopher, called Nof in the Bible. The Egyptian creation stories, some a bit too far out there for this presentation, include masturbation, oral copulation, and other matters. So no, the Israelites did not have a story of a God masturbating the world into existence. All right. So the Hebrews are not the Egyptians. Let's go. Moses, wishing to secure for the future his authority over the nation, gave them a novel form of worship opposed to or practiced by other men. Egyptians in ancient Egypt ate pork. The laws of Moses teaches us not to do so. Let us go and close out, brothers and sisters. More Yiftach of Dan, shumrehabrit.com. For those interested, that's a brother I've known for over 20 years easy. I support his camp. I'm happy for him to be my friend. And we happen to be, say, in claim of the same tribe. All right. So, when I got with my lady earlier this year, we making 8 months, thank the Most High. He was one of my advisors, being a married man. See, I ask people who are already in that position for advice. I'm not going to ask the person who has 18 divorces. I'm going to ask the person who has a steady marriage. Let's go on, if you will, to the next slide. In Egypt, in New Jersey. All right, I was just trying to call myself being a little humorous and funny there. All right, we are seen there with the mask on. Oh, by the way, Egypt make you wear the mask too when you go in the store. They go heavy with that. And they go heavy with it in Turkey, where we was off by the airport. But anyway, that's neither here nor there right now. So looking at this, right, you have me and my lady inside of a store. We was going shopping before one Shabbat in New Jersey. And here you see us with me and my red head covering and my pretty lady next to me inside of Egypt. We was on a boat in the Nile. All right. So let's go on, if we will, to the next slide. Subscribe to the channel, Mora Yeshaya Hebrew Lessons. That is something. Mora Yeshaya Hebrew Lessons is a channel on YouTube. And that is just a picture on the side that I thought was beautiful and pretty. And I put it there. All right. And brothers and sisters, okay, let's go in. Let us go in. This was my mother's friend. May she rest in peace. We're talking all the way back to 1984, 1985. Ima Kabodia of the tribe of Judah. She taught me a lot. A whole lot. May she rest in peace. She was, as stated, my mother's friend and a person of great wisdom. Shalom Aleichem, peace be upon her. Fab Aim, the one who has done many of my book covers, and for those who subscribe to the channel, please do so. She's the one who did the video for me and my lady's 8th month anniversary. So give respect where it's due, giving honor and praise unto the Most High, the Creator and the Maker of heaven and earth. Thus ends this presentation. Brothers and sisters, stay tuned. There will be more for those who are interested, and Most High bless you all. Shalom. I'm going to say this as I'm sitting in New York City now. And this is something my mother said. Because when the year 1990 came in, I was also in Brooklyn, in New York. And we heard pop, 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 pop. They were shooting guns for quote unquote New Year like they're doing outside now. I don't know if the people on the live can hear them shooting guns outside. My mother, who passed away in 2004, she said in 1990, what I'm going to say now, they're stupid. They're going to need them bullets one day. Y'all have a good night.
Good presentation. Good presentation.
Toda, love. I appreciate the compliment. Thank you, sweetheart.